Our members are Dave will be 1, I myself will be number 2, and Mary will be number 3. Dave is going to be talking about the entertainment part in the organization. I will speak on vivid descriptions and the conclusion, and Mary will conclude by talking about some improvements and her strongest assets.
Fellow Toastmaster, guests, welcome guests, and Carol. My first question, what indicated to you that the audience was entertained? This one grew on me as we went along. The basic indication that everybody's paying attention, they have their eyes on the speakers, they're not obviously distracted or bored, of course, all there, just as you'd expect it to be. Then as you went along, you started to get the laughs as you expected them, I think. I don't believe you were disappointed on that. And the laughs tend to build as the speech went on, and as we started to get more familiar with what the situation was you were describing to us, and why you chose to describe it the way you did, and what the really surprising and entertaining pieces of your experience were. And then it all led really very effectively, I thought, to a conclusion which wrapped it up really nicely. I'm going to remember this as sort of exactly right conclusion. You made the point that the whole speech made once again, that this is my experience as a parent, and isn't it really mostly fun? But let's see where it's all going to lead. That's the essence of it as far as I'm concerned. So that leads right into my other question, which is to describe the organization of the speech as I perceived it. As I perceived it, you started to tell us stories about your children, and you started with fairly straightforward stories, very clear, not much plot to them, just this surprising thing happened. Crawling on Friday, walking and running on Monday. But that element of surprise was there all the time, and the element of wonder that this child that's been living with me for all this time now still has the power to startle me and delight me. I thought the way that stories were arranged was just right for that plan. The stories got better and better as you went along. And we got better and better able to experience your attitude toward this whole situation. I thought that element of surprise and delight was the essence of the speech, and I thought it got across to the audience, and I thought one thing that did was that the organization of the speech really lent itself to that. You moved from story to story. I don't think it was exactly chronological, but it went from it's like this, and it's like this, but some days it's like that, and we were just brought along with it. One piece of difficulty that I personally have, this might be my hearing problem, is that your vocal variety is very good. Sometimes it's slow-paced, and sometimes you really put out a rush of words, and that's excellent pacing, but I think sometimes the hard words get lost in the rush. I don't know yet for sure if you ever used the word autism. I think you did, but I'm not sure. Because at that point you were going pretty fast, and I wasn't sure what you said. I think perhaps to just think about a couple places where it might be hard for people to follow technically what I'm saying, and just stop and go a little slow on that. But perhaps that's just a personal problem. Enjoyed it very much. My great-grandson is 2 right now, and some of that same stuff is going on again. Just different thoughts.
Okay, Carol. So I'm going to be talking about your vivid descriptions and how effective you were with this, as well as the conclusion and how it related to your talk. And I think we all can agree that her stories and her vivid descriptions was basically the basis of this whole speech. And you had talked in your intro about that this was the most important role you will have ever had and ever will have, was being as a parent. And you talked about a lot of your stories were, again, short little statements that were talking about Gregory and that he's always found things more interesting than food and often running. And I love the story about the babysitter being surprised, because I think we've all come into some of those type of things, and it may not necessarily even be whacking, but, you know, I've put myself in the babysitter's shoes thinking, she's going to be really surprised on that one. You had other great things, and some of your other stories that you use is that you use jumping, for Gregory jumping on the bed, related to the cat, and then also the death and sleeping. Some of those were really, you didn't have to say more than just those few sentences to talk about these things, but we were able to add more to these descriptions as well. You also did a great example of boy versus girl as well. And you did come across and do a great comparison between the two. You also had a lot of great descriptions of Gregory. I would love to have seen more on Vivian. And even though she was surprisingly easy for her, it was nice to see more on that. Your conclusion, you talked about constant battles, and you listed normal things we have with kids: oversleeping, eating right, and overwhelming clutter. Yet I would love to have seen you more summarize some of the other things that you've already told us about. So just maybe summarize some of those battles that you would have liked to, that you're dealing with currently right now. But your conclusion, basically talking about looking forward to what your adult children will become. So I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and our honored guests today, and our speaker, Carol. Your strong desire is what I found is to share your life in detail with the audience, is what I saw as one of your strongest assets in presenting this speech. You also had worked in some great body language, which really drew the storytelling of your family life. You also brought it in as such an aspect that presented the humor part of what you wanted us to hear too. You were entertaining us in a humorous manner, as well as matter-of-fact stories that take place. You're talking about your sleeping hours and how much that adds up, 1.5 hours here and an hour and a half there. That type of humor makes us realize how we can apply that humor in other things in our life. And so I was glad you shared that with us. You also did the jumping part, but I would ask that you would do that after you told us, because I saw the body language and I thought, what's she doing that for? Whereas if we had a little bit of the story and then had the jumping, would have relayed the story in a better format. Because you have this strong desire to share your being with us and your family's lives, I hear anxiety. And I'm not so sure how you get over that type of anxiety without probably just practicing and watching yourself in front of the mirror, with hearing the words come out of your mouth, listening to the enunciation and how fast you're saying them. In other words, I'm asking you to enjoy this yourself, not get so anxious over it that you become tense and have to release that in other ways. Saying, these are good stories. This is fun to learn about you. Let us enjoy it. And let you enjoy it as well. You had some solos, and probably by taping it, you find out where they're coming in. And I'd say this more of those anxiety moments, rather than when you're just letting yourself enjoy it and letting us enjoy the stories. Sharing something so personal as you have in situations like this lets us realize how each of us need to open up more too, so we get to know each other, and then therefore we can be better to help each other with our speaking and our listening. Carol, keep up this personal sharing with us and teaching us the lessons you've taught us today.
Hey, Carol.
Thank you. I take from Pete, speaking too fast, okay, something I have to work on. But in general, it's not specific. I don't think it's specifically anxiety. I think Okay, no, gotta deal with the way it proceeds, not. Slow down, saying my words calmly, gotta work on it. But thank you very much. I'll give it some thought. I was, hey, because of working for getting the job together and everything, I was behind on prep, and I was like, ah, okay, and it didn't have sufficient time to shake out, and then, get consolidated again, so I'm giving some thought to, okay, how I could do that differently next time, and on the next speech. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. The audience, any comments?
I loved your physical humor. There were a few spots that, you were explosive up there. And I think that it just helped me see what the kids were like. So that's fun.
You were able to convey to me your adoration for both children and for each one of their special gifts in their own personality. You conveyed that clearly to me. I liked your presentation. I liked the fact that you gave your children's names. It was something that we could all relate to. A mother's love for her children and the children's love for their mother. I like a story like that, a family story. I enjoyed it very much.
Carol, I enjoyed your speech too. And if I remember correctly, when I heard you had just a short reference to Daniel in your speech. And I know the speech is about your parenting journey. I encourage you to just talk a little bit more about how Daniel approaches parenting to let us see your approach. It may be similar because you're both introverts. I think it'd be a nice way to show your side of parenting, but it's also more about Daniel's side of parenting.
Right.
I had the same thought, I didn't hear much about Dad in this, but also I didn't, were there any differences prior to the birth in these babies, where you knew that the first was going to be?
Yeah, being pregnant with Gregory was like having a little hamster on a wheel all the time.